What's different between them isn't income. It's not even how much they make per hour. It's one number sitting in a savings account. And today I want to make the case that this number, $20,000, is the most underrated milestone in personal finance. Not $1 million, not six figures, $20,000. Stick around, because the reason this number matters has almost nothing to do with math, and everything to do with what happens in your brain once you cross it. If you've spent any time in the personal finance corner of the internet, you've heard people throw around numbers like $1 million or financial independence by 40, like those are the moments everything clicks into place. Here's the problem. Those numbers are so far away for most people that they don't actually change behavior today. They're inspiring in theory and useless in practice. What actually changes behavior is a number close enough to touch. And for most working adults, that number sits right around $20,000, roughly 3 to 6 months of living expenses for a lot of people. This isn't a magic number because of what it buys you. It's a threshold because of what it does to the way you make decisions. Think of your financial brain as running one of two operating systems. System 1, scarcity mode. When there's little or nothing behind you, every decision gets filtered through a single question. Can I survive this? You take the job offer you don't love because you can't afford to negotiate. You stay quiet when you should speak up. You say yes to overtime you resent because the money matters more than your Saturday. This isn't a character flaw. It's just what brains do under pressure. They narrow their focus to the next threat and stop looking further out. System 2, strategy mode. Once there's a real buffer sitting behind you, the question quietly changes. It's no longer, can I survive this? It's, is this worth it? That shift sounds small, but it rewires almost every financial decision you make afterward. Your job, your spending, even how you talk to your boss. The interesting part? Researchers who study financial well-being have found that even a modest cushion, a couple $1,000s, produces an outsized jump in how secure people feel, long before they're anywhere close to rich. The first bit of buffer does more emotional work than any dollar that comes after it. Push that cushion out further to several months of expenses, and you get another real jump. Not because the money itself changed, but because your brain finally has room to plan instead of just react. $20,000 tends to be the point where most people cross fully into System 2. Here's the part that surprises people. Imagine pushing a boulder up a hill. The first few feet are brutal. You're straining against gravity with almost nothing to show for it. That's what saving your first $20,000 feels like. Every dollar is earned through actual sacrifice, and progress feels agonizingly slow. But once that boulder crests the hill, something changes. Gravity switches sides. It starts helping you instead of fighting you. Let's put real numbers on this. Say you're saving $1,000 a month and investing it at a reasonable long-term average return. Your first $20,000 might take you close to a year and a half of steady saving. Or second $20,000 comes noticeably faster, not because you saved more, but because your first pile of money is now quietly earning returns alongside your monthly contributions. By the time you're chasing your third or fourth $20,000, your invested money is doing a meaningfully bigger share of the work. Once your portfolio crosses into the mid-six figures, an additional $20,000 can show up in a matter of months. Same effort, wildly different result. You didn't work harder, you didn't take on more risk. You just let time and compounding do what they do. The first $20,000 is brutal, specifically because none of that help exists yet. There's no secret club, no insider investment vehicle unlocked at $20,000. You're buying the same index funds, using the same brokerage app, following the same basic principles as someone with 500 saved. What changes is scale. A 10% return on $2,000 is $200. Nice, but forgettable. A 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000. Money that actually shows up and matters. Same percentage, same risk, same effort. The only difference is what you're applying it to. This is the entire secret behind money makes money. It's not mystical. It's arithmetic, finally having enough to work with. Here's what nobody tells you about hitting this milestone. The $20,000 itself isn't the valuable part. The valuable part is how you got there. To save that much from zero, you had to track where your money was actually going. Say no to purchases you wanted in the moment. And stay consistent for months, sometimes years, without an immediate reward. That's not a financial skill. That's a self-discipline skill that happens to show up in your bank account. And once you've proven to yourself you can do it, that identity sticks. A $5 coffee stops requiring an internal debate, not because you're suddenly rich, but because you've already proven you can handle the decisions that matter. At zero savings, every surprise expense is a 5-alarm fire. Car breaks down, crisis. Laptop dies, crisis. Rent goes up, crisis. At $20,000, those same events downgrade. Car breaks down, annoying but handled. Laptop dies, time to replace it, not panic. Rent increase, a conversation, not a catastrophe. And here's the flip side almost nobody talks about. Opportunities that were always floating around you suddenly become visible because you can actually act on them. A friend's business idea goes from interesting to worth a real conversation. A fixer-upper listing goes from someone else's project to something you can run the numbers on. A career conference goes from can't afford it to what's the return on this. The opportunities didn't appear out of nowhere. You just finally had the option to say yes. This might be the biggest shift of all, and it has nothing to do with your bank balance directly. When you're one missed paycheck away from trouble, you negotiate from fear. You don't ask for the raise. You don't push back on unreasonable requests. You don't apply for the role you're not 100% qualified for. You can't afford the risk. Once you've got a real buffer, you have what some people call walkaway money. Enough runway to leave a bad situation if you truly had to. Most people never actually use it, but just having it changes how you show up. You negotiate with a straighter spine. You take on the harder project because a no won't sink you. And ironically, that confidence tends to get noticed, which often leads to more opportunity, which builds more savings, which buys you more confidence. It compounds just like the money does. This is where a lot of people torpedo their own progress. They hit the milestone, feel the shift, and reward themselves. A car they don't need, a vacation they can't quite justify, a down payment stretched too thin. That $20,000 isn't a finish line. It's a foundation. Spend it and you're back to square one, except now with the memory of how hard it was to build the first time. Take vehicles as an example, since they're one of the biggest wealth leaks most people never examine. Between payments, insurance, maintenance, and fuel, a lot of households spend several $100s a month just to have a car in the driveway. And a new one loses a meaningful chunk of its value the moment it leaves the lot. Stack that over decades, and you're looking at a genuinely staggering number, one that could have funded real financial independence instead of a depreciating asset. None of this means never enjoying your money. It means asking a different question before big purchases. Not, can I afford the payment? But what does this cost me in terms of where that money could have gone instead? Something else happens once that foundation is in place. You stop sweating small purchases and start focusing on the handful of decisions that actually move the needle. Name brand versus generic cereal. Coffee at home versus coffee out. These arguments consume enormous mental energy for a difference that barely registers over a year. Meanwhile, decisions like where you live, what you drive, and how consistently you invest can swing your financial future by tens of thousands of dollars. Once you see that clearly, budgeting stops feeling like constant self-denial over lattes and starts feeling like picking your battles wisely. $20,000 won't make you rich. That's not the promise here. What it does is flip a switch. From reacting to your finances to actually directing them. From survival thinking to strategic thinking. From a boulder that's crushing you to one that's finally rolling in your direction. If you're nowhere near that number yet, don't let it feel impossible.
The first stretch is the hardest by design. There's no momentum helping you yet.
But it's also the only stretch you'll ever have to do without any help at all. Everything after gets easier. Not because the work changes, but because your money starts working alongside you. Start today. Future you is going to be very glad you did.